Have you ever noticed how most people talk about God, but almost no one actually experiences him? We live surrounded by temples, symbols, and sacred words. Yet within us, the real temple, noise reigns. People speak of faith, but what we see is fear. They speak of virtue, but what prevails is guilt. The Catholic Church, the Old Testament, the New Testament, all tried, in their own way, to offer a map to salvation. But what if the map is not the territory? What if the divine inspiration we seek outside is merely dormant within our own consciousness? Jiddu Krishnamurti would say that true spirituality begins when we stop following, when we dare to look at truth without intermediaries, without priests, without books, without gurus. Like Socrates, he invites us to distrust certainties, automatic beliefs, and the voices of religious authority that whisper what is right and wrong. Perhaps, he says, the original sin was not disobedience, but forgetting who we are, that within us dwells an inner divinity, forgotten under the weight of routine, fear, and comparison. What would happen if you stopped repeating prayers and started truly listening to yourself? And if the cosmic consciousness the saints described was something accessible here and now in the simple act of silencing the ego? Get ready. What you're about to discover may change everything you understand about religion, faith, and self-knowledge. Imagine an ancient mirror, cracked, dusty, yet still reflecting something. That's how most of us see ourselves, through a distorted reflection shaped by centuries of dogma, fear, and borrowed interpretations. Since childhood, we've been told that the Bible is the Word of God, that the Catholic Church guards the truth, that the Old and New Testaments are infallible compasses. But no one ever asked if we've learned to see or merely to repeat. Krishnamurti said that belief is a prison when it replaces observation. It's hard to admit, but how many times have we followed religious authority simply out of fear of emptiness? We seek safety in faith as one clings to an amulet, but forget that faith without self-knowledge becomes superstition. Socrates would say that the unexamined life is not worth living. So if we don't examine our beliefs, are we truly alive or just obedient? Think about daily life. We open our phones and follow spiritual influences as if they were new prophets. Ready-made phrases, instant gurus, viral rituals. The rush for enlightenment has become a product. But divine inspiration can't be consumed or delivered by push notification. It's a mystical, silent, unpredictable experience, like a breeze that only touches those who stop running. Ignorance here means believing without understanding. The result is separation. We lose touch with our inner divinity, waiting for someone above to save us. The Socratic solution? Dialogue. To ask, to question, to doubt, not to deny, but to see with our own eyes. Faith then stops being submission and becomes a form of inner freedom. Look within. Ask yourself, is the voice guiding you truly yours, or does it echo centuries of repetition? And you, have you realized how much of your belief is inheritance and how much is choice? Share in the comments. What is faith to you, security or discovery? For centuries, guilt has been the favorite language of religions. It wears the robes of virtue, but carries the sound of chains. The Catholic Church, throughout its history, built immense temples, not only of stone, but within the mind. And each believer, in silence, became an invisible penitent. But is guilt truly a path to spiritual enlightenment, or merely a disguise for the fear of thinking for oneself? Krishnamurti would say that man is only free when he frees himself from the idea of sin, because error to him is simply part of learning, not an eternal burden. In modern life, guilt has changed its form. We no longer confess to priests, but to algorithms. We compare our bodies, careers, and spiritualities online, seeking redemption in likes. We live the new liturgy of "I'm not enough," as if the feed were the new altar. Socrates would ask, who told you that error is the opposite of wisdom? In truth, guilt prevents us from seeing reality. Because a guilty mind is always running from itself, and running is the opposite of awareness. When we look at our mistakes with honesty and calm, we turn punishment into revelation. What was once shadow becomes light. What was once fear becomes understanding. Ignorance is believing that being imperfect is a crime. The result is living in separation, waiting for divine or social approval. The philosophical solution is contemplation, the calm gaze upon one's own chaos. When you observe without condemning yourself, something shifts. A deep compassion for yourself arises. And that compassion is the first step toward true spirituality. Remember, no one becomes enlightened while hating their own shadow. So maybe the forgiveness you seek in heaven needs to begin in your own chest. And you, do you have the courage to forgive yourself without asking anyone's permission? Share in the comments. Imagine the ocean. On the surface, restless waves, noise, foam. But deep below, absolute silence. It's in that depth, where the noise of beliefs and words ceases, that true divine inspiration is born. Krishnamurti said, "Silence is the flower of consciousness." And Socrates, if he were here, would smile, because silence is where every honest question begins. We live, however, in a time when silence is almost a crime. If there's a pause, we fill it with music, shows, notifications, anything, as if emptiness were dangerous. But it's in that emptiness that cosmic consciousness can be heard. The same space where Jesus of Nazareth, Buddha, and so many other mystics found the unity between the human and the divine. Today, instead of stone temples, we inhabit digital ones, always noisy. And in that noise, we lose the ability to hear the essential, ourselves. Ignorance lies in mistaking silence for absence. The consequence is living fragmented, seeking outside what can only bloom within. The philosophical solution is to cultivate silence not as escape, but as presence, an inner temple where one can simply be. Modern psychology already knows this. The silent brain reorganizes memories, reduces anxiety, and increases mental clarity. In other words, science and philosophy say the same thing. Wisdom lives in the gap between one thought and another. So why do we insist on running from what could heal us? Silence is not the opposite of faith, it's its soil. And perhaps the deepest prayer is not to ask, but to listen. And you, can you stay silent without feeling empty? Share in the comments. From birth, we are trained to obey. Parents, teachers, churches, governments all tell us what is right and wrong. And over time, that external voice settles inside the mind like an eternal echo. Even when we are alone, we still obey. We call it moral conscience. But is it really? Or is it just the subtlest disguise of the religious authority that still lives within us? Krishnamurti warned, when you follow someone, you stop following the truth. He didn't deny faith. He only asked that it be alive, a personal flame, not an inherited one. The obedient mind doesn't seek wisdom, it seeks comfort. And comfort is the opposite of inner freedom. Today, obedience has a new name: status, public opinion, validation. We've become devotees of others' gaze, slaves to invisible approval. Ignorance is mistaking obedience for virtue. The result is living alienated, repeating prayers, mantras, and motivational phrases without ever understanding what they mean. The philosophical solution is a return to Socratic maieutics, the inner dialogue, to ask oneself, why do I believe what I believe? Who taught me this? Those questions hurt, but they set you free, because only those who question discover. And as Socrates said, no one can be taught, only awakened. Today, psychologists call this emotional autonomy, the ability to think without depending on external approval. Curious, isn't it? Science and philosophy meet again. The free mind, unlike the obedient one, doesn't fear being wrong, it only fears stagnation. And you, have you noticed how many of your decisions are in truth echoes of others' voices? Share in the comments. What's harder, to obey or to think for yourself? What if everything you believe is just an elegant way of running from yourself? What if your faith isn't courage, but fear? Fear of emptiness, fear of silence, fear of freedom. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But what do? We spend our time examining others, judging their flaws, their choices, their beliefs, and forget to look within. We spend our whole lives trying to be good according to religion's manual, without ever understanding what it means to be true according to our own conscience. Ignorance is believing, obedience is virtue. The result is fragmentation, a soul divided between duty and desire. We live exhausted, trying to be saints on Sunday and survivors on Monday. But the human spirit was never born to be tamed. It was born to transcend. Krishnamurti would say, freedom is not the opposite of discipline, it is the understanding of necessity. When we understand where our beliefs come from, we stop being prisoners of them. Divine inspiration doesn't come from outside. It isn't in the Bible, the New Testament, the Sunday sermon, or the priest's approval. It arises the moment the mind stops resisting truth. That's when the human meets the divine and realizes they were never separate. But this revelation demands courage, because facing oneself is the greatest sacrifice. The cross we must carry isn't made of wood, it's made of mirrors. And what if everything you call faith is just fear of thinking? What if everything you call God is just the reflection of your own forgotten soul? And what if the inner divinity you seek is already here, right now, just waiting for you to be silent enough to hear it? Think, feel, don't accept, discover, and you. Do you have the courage to doubt your own faith to find the truth? Every fall has a sound, but awakening is silence. After questioning everything, religion, religious authority, the Bible, even faith itself, comes the moment when the mind becomes still, not out of surrender, but out of understanding. The cosmic consciousness that once seemed distant begins to reveal itself in the simplest things. The air, someone's gaze, the sunset, the mere act of existing. Then we realize God was never out there. He has always been the space between one thought and another. Krishnamurti said that when the mind is quiet, the entire universe opens before it. And Socrates would add, know thyself. It's no coincidence. Both pointed to the same place, the center of consciousness, where the divine and the human cease to be opposites. Today, even neuroscience confirms it. Practices of contemplation and silence reduce fear and increase empathy. In other words, ancient wisdom was right. Self-knowledge is the antidote to separation. Ignorance was reaching upward while forgetting the depths. The result was living divided, trying to balance heaven and earth. The philosophical solution is unity. To understand that the spiritual and the material are the same fabric, seen from different angles. The real temple is the body. The true prayer is silence. The highest virtue is presence. It's curious. The more we understand, the less we need to believe. Because truth, when lived, needs no defense. It simply is. Have you ever felt that moment when the mind goes silent and everything suddenly makes sense? There comes a moment when certainties become prisons. And ironically, it's precisely when we think we've found the truth that we stop seeing it. Krishnamurti said, truth is a pathless land. There is no manual, no ritual, no leader who can lead you to it. Inner freedom is born when we accept mystery without trying to control it. And it's in that space, between knowing and not knowing, that true spirituality blooms. Today, the world idolizes those who have opinions, who are right. We live in the age of experts in everything and sages in nothing. But the true sage is the one unafraid to say, I don't know. In psychology, this is called cognitive mindfulness, the ability to observe thoughts without becoming them. It's the modern version of Socrates' advice, I know that I know nothing. A mind that doubts isn't weak, it's alive. Ignorance is thinking that knowledge is power. The result is spiritual arrogance, fanaticism, separation disguised as faith. The philosophical solution is the humility to keep learning even after enlightenment. Because wisdom is not a period, it's a movement. Like the Old and New Testaments, life also renews, reinterprets, rewrites itself. Learning is continuous, and revelation is daily. So perhaps the greatest act of faith is this: not knowing yet remaining open, letting life teach what no book can. And you, have you ever experienced the freedom of not needing to be right? Have you noticed how easy it is to talk about God and how hard it is to feel Him while washing the dishes? Spirituality has become a stage show, a showcase of pretty quotes, incense, and selfies with the soul. But true inner divinity doesn't live in words. It reveals itself in simple, unseen, ordinary gestures, in the gaze that listens, in silent forgiveness, in patience toward others and oneself. That's where the sacred lives. In the routine, we forget to contemplate. Jesus of Nazareth said that the kingdom of heaven is within us. Socrates would ask, "And what have you done with that kingdom?" Because it means nothing to know the scriptures, the New Testament, the Old Testament, or any holy book if the mind remains confused, tense, and lost. True divine inspiration is not memorizing sacred words, it's becoming a space of presence. Krishnamurti would call this living with consciousness, acting with clarity, without reactivity, without the blindness of haste. Ignorance is separating the spiritual from the human. The result is living two lives: Sundays, pure and devout, and Mondays, anxious and mechanical. The philosophical solution is to dissolve that boundary. The temple is not the building, it's the breath. Prayer is not the text, it's the attentive gaze. And silence is the altar where everything is renewed. Today, science proves what the sages already knew. Gratitude and presence alter how the brain functions. In other words, feeling the divine is also a biological act. Truth is not above life, it is life. And you, have you noticed the sacred in small things, or are you still waiting for a grand miracle? Share in the comments. Where do you see God in your everyday life? Wisdom doesn't live in ideas, but in perception, because the way we look at the world defines what the world is to us. The same sunrise can be mere light to one and a miracle to another. What changes? Consciousness. Krishnamurti said that to see is to act. When we see something truly, without judgment, without the ego's filter, without the weight of religious authority, transformation happens on its own. The awakened mind doesn't need to decide to be good. It is naturally compassionate. Virtue then ceases to be a moral obligation and becomes a spontaneous expression of lucidity. And this applies to everything, from how we treat a stranger to how we face our own mistakes. We live in times of distraction and comparison. We scroll through feeds, consume information, but rarely stop to see. Ignorance is living on autopilot. Thinking observation is the same as understanding. The result is numbness, a mind full of data and empty of presence. The philosophical solution is the Socratic gaze, one that doesn't judge but asks. To question is a way of loving the world, and love is the purest form of transcendence. In the end, every spiritual path comes down to this: relearning how to see. To see without fear, without guilt, without hurry, to see as if for the first time and realize the miracle was always here. And you, have you truly looked or just seen what others expect you to see? Share in the comments. After all the questions, silence returns. But this time it isn't empty, it's full. The soul, weary from seeking, finally understands that the path led nowhere, because the destination was always within. Everything we sought, divine inspiration, wisdom, spiritual enlightenment, was always a reflection of consciousness trying to remember itself. Krishnamurti said, "Freedom begins when you realize you are the creator of your own prison." And Socrates would add, "The examined soul is the dwelling place of truth." Now everything aligns. The Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the myths, the doctrines, all pointed to the same place, within. But man, distracted, confused the finger for the moon. He turned religion into a fence when it was always meant to be a bridge. Ignorance was forgetting that the sacred is simple. The result was living apart from unity. The philosophical solution is returning to the essential, to what is alive, real, present. Faith stops being belief and becomes a state of consciousness. Virtue stops being effort and becomes naturalness. And self-knowledge is no longer the end. It is the path itself. The inner temple has no walls, no dogmas, no altar. It is the moment, the now, the breath, life being life, with no need to be explained. And in that instant, all separation dissolves. All is one. All is God. And you, do you feel that your return to your inner temple has already begun? Share in the comments. In the end, truth does not shout. It whispers. It offers no rewards, imposes no commandments. It simply reveals itself when we stop running away. After so much searching for meaning in the heavens, in books, in doctrines, we realize that the true temple is the one beating within us. And that inner divinity does not demand blind faith, but awakened consciousness, divine inspiration, wisdom, transcendence. All of it has always been here, waiting for you to be still enough to listen. The paths of Jiddu Krishnamurti and Socrates meet at this silent point. The courage to think, the courage to doubt, and finally, the courage to be. To be whole, free, present. Not holy, human, not perfect, awake. So next time you feel the weight of guilt or the fear of religion, remember, you are not the sinner searching for light. You are the light forgotten in the midst of hurry. If this reflection touched something within you, share this video with someone who needs to remember that faith begins in silence. And if you want to continue this philosophical journey with me, subscribe to the channel, because the next step may reveal something even deeper about who you truly are.